The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said, "Amen, amen, I say to you, whoever does not enter a sheepfold through the gate, but climbs over elsewhere is a thief and a robber. But whoever enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens it for him, and the sheep hear his voice, as the shepherd calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has driven out all his own, he walks ahead of them, and the sheep follow him, because they recognize his voice. But they will not follow a stranger. They will run away from him, because they do not recognize the voice of strangers." Although Jesus used this figure of speech, the Pharisees did not realize what he was trying to tell them. So Jesus said again, "Amen, amen, I say to you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. A thief comes only to steal and slaughter and destroy. I came so that they might have life and have it more abundantly." The Gospel of the Lord.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't watch a whole lot of television. There are a couple shows that I like that I follow regularly, but most of the time I just have television on for that white noise kind of stuff in the background. I remember a number of years ago, there was a show that I thought, oh, it's getting kind of like a little publicity. Let me turn on and see what it's about. I watched it. I thought, this will never last more than 1 year. It's been on 14 seasons already, which is good for television. It holds about 3 million people a setting, I guess, from what I've Googled. But the show is called The Masked Singer. I don't know how many of you know that show or not. There's a number of different celebrities, professional athletes, comedians, Grammy winners who compete on this show. They're in elaborate costumes to disguise their faces and their bodies. Their voices when they speak is garbled, but when they sing, it's their real voice. And the purpose is to figure out who is underneath the costume. Sometimes they give vague clues as to who they are. But I find it fascinating because when I have seen this, when they're singing, it is interesting to watch the panel. They lean forward, they tilt their head, they're trying to distinguish whose voice this is. Most of the time they get it wrong. Sometimes they get it right. But it's interesting to me that this show gathers 3 million people every time it's on for the last 14 seasons. And I wonder what their faith life is like. Are they that in tune to try to figure out what God's voice sounds like? No, God's not in a costume. He doesn't disguise his voice. He speaks very clearly. Jesus is nothing like the masked singer. He reveals himself plainly to us. But we have to make the effort to get to know him, to get to know what his voice sounds like on a personal level. Today in the gospel, Jesus talks about the sheep knowing the voice of the shepherd. So we need to know what his voice sounds like if we're going to follow him. And the way we do that is by having a relationship with him. I was thinking about my brother, thinking when I call my brother, he calls me. If I call him, I don't say, "Hey, Don, it's Mike." He knows who I am. He knows the sound of my voice. He knows me as a person. So there's no need for that kind of introduction thing. If we're going to be a good disciple of Jesus, to know his voice, we have to take time to study and listen listen to it. It's not just about coming to Mass one Sunday a week and that's it. We need to have a prayer life. We need to be able to sit in quiet with him and listen to what he is asking of us. So what does God's voice sound like? Well, if you look at the post-resurrection accounts, God's voice is full of love and compassion. That's how the people knew him. When Mary Magdalene was in the garden that first day of the resurrection, she saw somebody she thought was a gardener. But it was only until he said Mary and she recognized the voice. Thomas, he says, I'm not going to believe until I can put my fingers in his hands and my hand in his side. And Jesus appears, and his voice is not of condemnation, but of love and encouragement. The same thing with Peter, who denied Christ to his face in the garden. Jesus comes and says, Peter, do you love me? He doesn't condemn. He keeps inviting us into this relationship with him. Even thinking back to the very beginning with Adam and Eve in the garden, he knows what they did by eating from the tree, and yet God comes looking for them, not to chastise them, but to love them. That's what the voice of God sounds like. Too often we listen to the voice of the world, which says, make more money, get better degrees. Maybe the voice of the world says, God can't love you, you're not good enough. We tend to listen to those voices more than we do of the Good Shepherd. We need to make sure that we do have a dedicated prayer time, 10 minutes a day, thanking God for the gifts he has given us, bringing into his presence our concerns for our family members and for ourselves, to be able to listen to him saying, I've not deserted you. I'm with you through all things. You know, if we look at history, they say sheep aren't the smartest of animals, but yet they recognize the voice of God. Are we smarter than the sheep? Do we recognize what God's voice says, or do we just follow our own voices out the world? I encourage you, take time to sit before God in adoration. Sit in your home. My mom had her own dedicated prayer chair, a time that nobody would bother her, but it was just her and God for 10, 15 minutes a day. If we do that on a regular basis, we will hear the voice of God saying to us, you are my beloved children. I love you more than anything, and I gave my life for you. Let's make sure we listen to the voice of the shepherd, not the voice of the world.